Hello, everybody. I'm so pleased to be here with you today and with the lovely Becc Akasha, a dear friend and colleague and sister and magical Pleiadian co-being. And we're here to talk to you today about one of my favorite topics, which is the heart. And, you know, so many people talk about living from your heart, you know, being heart-centered, letting your heart be your guide, all of these phrases. But I wonder if a lot of people really have a tangible, visceral, reliable, feeling sense of what that is and what that practically looks like in their lives. And so I'm really excited about this topic. Do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit and share a little about yourself?
Yeah. Hi guys, and yes, it's lovely to connect with you, Julia, on love, which is so my thing, actually. Yeah. So my name is Becc. I'm a psychic channel and a sacred Lotus teacher, which basically means that I'm a spiritual teacher who teaches on the process of unfoldment, of unfolding the sacred lotus of your heart and your natural light. And yes, I'm also very multidimensional, and so I'm always talking with spirit guides and angels, and it all kind of fuses into this magical time. So I do personal sessions with people. I do sacred sessions and channeling where we just meet with where you are, or we talk with your spirit guides. I also do medical intuition, just because it's one of those things. It's part of the multidimensional package that I am. And I thought, why not? So yeah, this topic is really close to my heart, as it took me a long time to kind of find my way back to myself, to my heart and my true essence, which lives in your heart. As someone who's had really severe trauma and abuse in the past, that kind of takes away from your ability to connect to your heart and takes away from your ability to really trust in your heart. It's not that our connection ever dissipates or dissolves, but our trust and our habit of awareness into our heart. You know, if you're abused or traumatized, it just becomes very difficult. So I struggled with that for a long time, and making my way back to my heart was a major thing for me. So I'm really excited to talk about this with my lovely friend who lives in my heart, Julia. Yeah, and it's great to share with you guys and see you all here. Even though you're not here, I can kind of sense your energy. And yeah, I hope that what we share shines light for you and illuminates the process of you unfolding into your heart that's always been there for you. So yeah, Julia, do you want to tell people a bit more about you and your work and stuff? Because it's
I would love
awesome.
to. I'm just soaking up the delicious vibes right now as you were sharing. So I'm Julia Phoenix. I am a relationship coach and a transformational healer and a speaker. And my focus is a little bit more grounded in, I suppose, the third dimension, which is, you know, our relationships with one another, as well as our relationship with ourselves, our relationships to all kinds of things, right? But I coach women, I coach couples, and, you know, like you mentioned, Becc, I've also lived through a significant amount of trauma. My audience sort of knows this because I'm really open about it, you know, and because I think, you know, in the spiritual field, especially, it's important to keep weaving that awareness in with whatever we're teaching. You know, I grew up and was raised in an Eastern cult, so some of the higher dimensional truths and also some of the spiritual practices, which are beautiful practices, you know, I really have kind of an inside view of how those practices themselves and the people who do them can sometimes be not so in alignment if they're disconnected from their bodies, their emotions, their personal relationships, if they haven't healed from their trauma, if they're trying to escape from it. And Bex, you're someone that I respect so much because that is not your jam. Your jam is kind of integration, but also I appreciate so much your capacity to hold that higher perspective and to hold everyone and everything in perfect love. Just wanted to share that. Yeah, and speaking of relationships, it's like we have relationships with everything in our physical and non-physical world, whether we know it or not, right? And that includes our earth, our bodies, our food, our homes, of course, other people, our careers, but also our relationship with ourselves. And I thought we just sort of touch on living from the heart as it pertains to both inner and outer relationships. So what would you say, Beck, around the topic of living from your heart internally, letting your heart guide you internally? What does that look like?
Well, I think it really looks like, if people want to really do that, it looks like doing what I'm doing right now, which is that you make it a really strong practice, and it looks like stopping throughout your day in an interview and checking in with your heart. Really things that seem really simple and basic but are so important and fundamental, because everything else blooms from that. So, the reason that I tune into my heart now is because I want to know what the highest light answer is to say and to express from my heart. So it's about living from like a heart consciousness place. So in relation to your relationship with yourself and actually living from the heart, it becomes a thing where we need to have a practice, a steady practice of actually connecting with your heart and getting to know it in like a direct experience. This is a real thing within me. A lot of people are like spiritual and are like, oh, I'm heart consciousness or whatever. But a lot of people are kind of practicing that without having direct experience of their own heart energy. And I know that for 3D people that can seem uncomfortable or anything, but that's kind of the awakening that's happening for us at this time. I think why we're talking about this now as well is that it's no longer a choice for us to just be 3D. We will always have our 3D, and that's totally natural, but we're awakening into heart consciousness right now. And the first step of that is recognizing that you're an energetic being, and that your humanness is a 3D, just another dimensional expression of that same energy. But it looks like having a practice where you connect with your higher self. I have a YouTube video if anyone wants to check it out, of just, I am here with my heart. I am connected to my heart. You set an intention and then you breathe. And you understand that your heart is going to arise to you in stillness and not in your emotional reactivity. In our relationships to others, that comes up a lot as well, is the heart is very neutral. So if you don't feel neutral or still or steady, you are being reactive instead of responsive. But for the self, we want to have a relationship with our heart, get to know it. When you do this, you'll start to feel different qualities of your own essence energy. Like for me, the fundamentals of my energy are peace, compassion, love. So when I do a heart practice, by just putting my hands here and having an intention, I will in time feel those qualities of energy. And that's when I know that I'm in my heart. And then I can respond to the world, respond to myself, my emotional world, if we're talking about relationship to the self, from this place, not from my mind, and not from the emotional reactivity itself. It becomes that know how I'm going to explain it very 3D, but you know how in your head you've got like your inner narration, And when you're emotional, you've got particularly strong things happening. And you've also, if you've ever experimented with intuition, you've got an intuitive voice. What we notice about that voice is that it's very still and quiet. The heart, when you're in your heart alignment, it's that same voice. So amidst your emotions that occur within you, you listen for that inner stillness voice. And with practice, you become able to hear that amidst the inner turbulence you may be experiencing. But so the fundamental thing is to have that beginning practice. So when you are feeling emotional or whatever, and you need to respond to your daily life, you have a habit already of looking for that voice. And then it's intuition. It's intuitive. Living from embodying your heart for yourself, you have to take the action that the heart, that inner voice of stillness, conveys to you in a quiet voice or imagery that you receive, however you receive it, feelings. When something feels positive or peaceful or loving, that's in alignment with the heart's natural tone. So you can know, okay, I'm embodying my heart right now. This decision will lead to this, because you can feel that energy as emotion that resonates at heart. Love, peace, wholeness, etc. But yeah, embodying the heart is, we need to listen to our intuition and act on it. Acting on it is really, if you look at heart-centered people, they're following their heart. That's what it means, is to act on the intuition that you get, even if you're scared or it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's often the hard part, is having that calling. And sometimes it's like when we're in that space, I know for myself, when I'm in a meditative space and I am centered there and I get guidance, it's like, okay, of course. And then, sometimes if you're shifting throughout the day into different perspectives and different frequencies, it can feel like, but I can't, that's too scary. This doesn't make sense, all kinds of things, right? So what would you say to someone who is having a tough time with those emotions and just taking action? Would you recommend just that simple practice of coming back and coming back and coming back?
Yeah, coming back and understanding that the heart is not going to go anywhere because you fall out of alignment or because you're too scared to take that step. Like, just because I was keep using myself as an example, because I am someone that has been in that struggle. Like, I can speak to very high perspectives, but I know how hard it is. But that's also why I know how freeing it is when you can follow your heart. So what I would do is, like, you're just going to have to watch yourself not follow that inner voice that time, and know that your heart still loves you and you're still held in line and it's still here for you. But also, that's where being able to actually step into that heart guidance or hear it or take the action, whatever, when you are moving throughout the day and you have triggers or whatever coming up, that's where your coping skills for those triggers are really important. Like, the most efficient thing or helpful thing, especially in terms of like hearing your heart, is grounding skills, where you kind of you acknowledge this. Okay, I feel fear right now, and I'm here in the year like 2020, and I'm safe. And you listen to the sounds around you. You feel the something you're touching. Whatever you can do to bring yourself in a sensory way into the now moment, but also being allowing of the fact that you've got an emotion going on. This is calming to the nervous system, and then you may be able to hear the heart or take that step, but also with softness and grace. If it's too scary, it's too scary. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Becc, because I think it is a practice, and sometimes things are accessible to us and other times they may not be, and it's okay. That's one of the reasons why it can be really helpful to have someone that you work with as a guide to sort of help to move through those triggers and to really become more adept at using those tools that you're talking about.
I think it becomes both. It becomes like, I still struggle with trauma and triggers, but I have a really good heart relationship. I'm both. I fall out of alignment again and
Yeah.
again. I don't act on the
Yes.
intuition again and again, but I also do the opposite again and again.
Yes.
And
Yes. It's
you
like a
just have
muscle.
to
I mean, the
you.
heart is technically, the physical heart is a muscle, right? So it's the same thing, flexing your heart muscle to, to keep coming back. And, I think this is really important actually too, Beck, because a lot of people, I hear this a lot. People talk about an emotionally based human type of uh, love or connection or grief on a very human level, things like that, coming from the heart. And actually, that's your sacral chakra that
Mm,
typically is where the emotion comes from.
mm,
And that's not wrong or bad. The sacral chakra is beautiful. But I do think that people get mixed up a lot of the time, because what you were speaking about, that neutral sort of feeling, it's loving and it's neutral. It's actually loving
mm,
towards literally everyone and everything in existence.
mm,
So it's not, my relationship with Antoine, yes, I feel that love for him from my heart.
mhm.
I feel it for the trees in just the same way. If I'm really, really in that frequency, if I'm really zeroed in, and other emotions and that emotional reactivity,
Mm.
it's not from here. At least this is my perspective. It's typically from the sacral. Does that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, no, no, I agree that it's important to be clear on the different types of love,
yeah,
We are, because when we start talking about heart, we have to be talking about this non-dualistic, like that heart energy that you
yeah,
just described. But yeah, as Julia was saying, there's all different expressions. These are expressions of that divine love. It's
that
all
is
beautiful.
that is true.
It's so beautiful. Your relationship with your partner is a reflection of unity energy.
Yes,
If you want to know the higher perspective, that's what's happening
yes,
there.
yes, 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 and
Um,
I've always really felt too that it's important that the heart is really the meeting point for all the
yeah,
upper chakras, all the lower chakras. I also consider it the meeting point between the higher self and the inner child and the conscious self. It's
I
like,
love that. I love that.
yeah, yeah. Well, I started doing inner child work just at around the same point in time that I was having a heart awakening. And it was a very
Mm,
specific awakening through my heart, and it came through a catalyst of a specific relationship. And I've shared with you about this privately before a little bit, but I was trying to understand what was going on. And I started working with this gentleman. His name is Mel Brand. They have he and his wife have a beautiful YouTube channel called the Gold Ray Twin Flames. And I sought out his help and counsel, and he had me doing these heart center meditations. Um,
mm,
so every day I was breathing into the heart, and I work really well with visuals. So imagining a flower opening and imagining a light,
mm,
and I really felt and spent time in that opening on a daily basis. And then he had me doing things like meeting my inner child there,
mm.
and then he had me doing things like channeling my higher self through there. And so it absolutely changed my life. And the biggest gift that he gave me, really, I feel, with all of this, was that, when people get into relationships that are very intense, and a lot of people now, they're in these like relationships that you could call twin flame or soulmates,
Mm,
or, these very deep, catalytic, spiritual relationships. Um,
mm,
it, it does open things up, but that energy that we feel, primarily it's for us. It's not about the other person, and it's not about the relationship, even though the relationship itself is a
mm.
beautiful expression and a beautiful recognition. What Mel really showed me was that, um, it was about me awakening to the love inside of me. He
Mm.
was just the one pointing me towards it. Yeah.
So I was wondering, if do you want to talk about love with relationships? Relationships is your jam, so
It is
maybe
my
you have a really good perspective, and I'm sure that you do, on how to embody that love inside of a relationship with like others as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I do want to say that some of the tools that I love most are quite physical. So actually breathing in to the heart space, actually opening up, your ribs and, even your front, your back heart, the sides of your heart, putting the hands over your heart like you just did, really touching and feeling there. And there was one other one that I was going to mention, and now I can't remember what it was. But connecting in different ways throughout the day is always going to be a helpful thing when we come into relationship with other. You know, our heart fields are magnetic and huge, and they interact with one another's all day long. So, I mean,
Mm.
relationship very, very natural for human beings. Um, we get to choose the level of relationshiping that we want to enter into with any human being. And some people are going to make it easy for you to go right there, and some people are going to trigger a lot of your stuff, and it's going to be like, whoa, where's the center point? Either one is fine, but I think it's really important to first start to access that within yourself wherever you can. That said, in terms of communication, the emotional reactivity in relationships, like you were talking about, responding versus like reacting, it's going to be way higher than in almost any other area of our lives. I mean, this is why you see people just screaming at each other when they could have a very civil, collected conversation at work, or or with, whatever, the nanny. It's because these figures in our lives really are awakening us to a lot that we may or may not be currently aware of, that we might be carrying, that we might need to address or transmute. So in that way, it's a gift. But I always tell people, pause for the cause. So in terms of the reactivity in relationship, if you can take a moment and take a step back before that reaction and just observe, like Becc was sharing, just observe. In fact, that's another beautiful practice if you're wanting to cultivate awesome relationships in your life, is to do witnessing meditations, just observing, the thoughts, observing the physical sensations, so that you're not as identified with your triggers, so you don't get sort of thrown, and just kind of taken away with it, right? And then from there, hopefully you can start to open up in a vulnerable way, to express, and the degree to which we can be intimate with ourselves is the degree to which we'll feel safe to be vulnerable to others. So sometimes it takes some time for people to really kind of like look around inside and look behind the cobwebs and kind of really, really spend time holding themselves in a compassionate way before they can bring that then towards someone else and hold space for another compassionately. But compassion is really, I mean, that's the word that keeps kind of resounding, because that's the essence of the heart, and it's the essence of successful relationships. It's the essence of communication. And true compassion, I always like to say this, but genuine compassion includes self-compassion. So even Marshall Rosenberg, who I talk about a lot, who wrote the book Nonviolent Communication, he talks about, first having that self-empathy, that self-compassion, for the way that I feel, for how I'm perceiving things, for my messy, beautiful humanity, for my hurt or my whatever it is that's coming up in that moment. And from that place, what I find is it's easier to soften and open up space to be compassionate towards whatever's coming up for the other individual. And there's ways that you can communicate openly, keeping the focus primarily on you, once again, on your feelings, on what it is that you're needing, on what's true for you, and then making requests versus demands, and opening up space for others to share in that way as well. And some of us, sometimes, it's like we have to be the leader sometimes in that regard. And I really feel, Beck, like that's a lot of people probably who watch my material or probably, follow your material. They're going to be people who might be in this position, whether it's with their partner or with family members or whomever. Oftentimes someone has to soften first. Someone has to lead with that vulnerability. And that can be really scary. But there's also protection in that inner connection that we have. I'm not saying like throw yourself under the bus or like just throw your vulnerability to the wolves, but often, actually, almost always, again and again and again and again and again, I find in my own life and in my work with clients that when I approach people with leading with vulnerability and compassion for myself as well as for them, they come towards me in a similar way. They will soften, they will deactivate, and then we'll be able to meet more fully in that space. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's everything that you shared. I feel like really answers the question on how to really embody your heart. Like that's exactly what I would say about it with relationships. I mean, is like, yeah, everything you said, just being mindful of your reactions and reactivity, empathy. Empathy is the doorway for like heart connection. And what you said is true as well about that everyone watching this is probably or possibly the people that are who are resonating at a bit of a higher consciousness, and so they're in that challenge. And that's, I think, even Julia and I were talking about this every now and then, of like how when you are awake, it is like a call to practice unconditional love for others, when like we live in such a 3D world, and in your intimate relationships, if you've got someone that is not at the same wavelength as you in terms of like capacity to be vulnerable and everything, you just have to be like, you have to rise, you have to step into a higher, like, okay, because the tendency I know for me is to react back when I realize I'm not safe because they're not at my level. I'm like, or it's not safe for you to, as Julia said, like there's a nuance of sharing the vulnerability to create softening, which is beautiful and does happen. And like some people are just, you can already know are not going to be receptive and it's not safe to do that.
Yeah.
That's when you're called into like, okay, I need to pull away or let go. You need to accept where that person is, basically. And that's such a challenge to rise to the heart when with attachment involved.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
it's a challenge that can keep many of us busy for a long, long time.
Yeah.
It's a worthy challenge, it's a worthy challenge.
Yeah, I've definitely found that though, like answering that call has been a really strong doorway for higher levels of awakening within me.
Yes.
So when you're called to accept someone else as they are, which
Yes.
is a part of all of that, of the empathy and the compassion and the relationships. It's that higher acceptance, and acceptance is really everything. It's probably the hardest thing for humans, I think.
Yeah, it's challenging. We like to fight. We like a little fight. What else just popped into my mind is that, I mentioned the heart is the meeting place between the inner child and the higher self and the, conscious adult perspective, the now. And also it's the meeting place, between the masculine and the feminine polarities in my experience as well. And so sometimes, in a very feminine way, we might be really called to kind of like soften and open. And sometimes in a very masculine yet loving way, we might be called towards boundaries, just discernment, right? Like clarity, understanding, like higher wisdom, those kinds of qualities that we may need to also use. Because I definitely don't want to give people the impression, I know this is not what you're sharing at all, Becc, but I don't want to give people the impression that it's like, just walking through life completely, wide open and like all the time, like soft and surrendering constantly. In a sense, yes, we're surrendering constantly, but we're surrendering to the truth of what is, right? And sometimes, and that's acceptance. And sometimes the truth is like, I have to say this thing to this person out of love that may hurt them, or it's not loving for me to stay in this situation or to engage further in this conversation when it's hurting me. And that's actually not loving for either of us, because this is the other thing, is that what hurts me in a relationship also hurts the other person, and what hurts another person in a relationship also. So what's the most loving thing is sort of a question that I like to ask when you're sort of facing those tricky instances.
Yeah, that's really good tool. I think I'm gonna steal that. I think I already do similar things.
I'm sure you do.
And help me to remind myself to do it more. Because I can say and be honest that the relationships for me has been the hardest, because as you were saying, that's where your trauma gets activated the most. Because humans don't really feel safe with one another, because the way that we've been parented is just set up so much unhelpful conditioning. That's where we just we can become reactive. So all these little tools and things, the more the better,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm all about the tools, definitely. I wanted to ask, I'm particularly actually interested in what you have to share about this, Becc, because right now, at the time that we're recording this, there's a global pandemic going on. A lot of people are experiencing quarantine. A lot of people are experiencing a lot of fear, which is a vibration that causes a lot of separation, and really has a powerful impact on our ability to connect with our heart. And so when it comes to being leaders in the world at this time and helpers in the world at this time, and I don't just mean, out in a public career like you or I have, but just in terms of what you were saying about being called to a higher expression and just on a soul level being kind of a leader. What would living from your heart look like in that context for you?
With the world and your position in the world and the fear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think, I'm going to sound a little repetitive, but because everything stems from the same thing. So it's about that having that center place within you, right? So that then you can elevate above the sort of collective fear. Like, I know that I've had to do that lately, is like, especially a lot of our viewers, as you said, are going to be these sensitive, empathic people who are going to be very spongy. I know that you're really spongy, guys. So you need to have this practice. Like, and I keep saying it because it is going to be the most helpful thing for you, especially right now and in general, is to just register that you're held in your heart energy. Okay, like that this is not just like this one little chakra here. This is the place of your higher self. It's the place of spiritual light. It's the place of the collective's heart or higher self. So when I think about it like that, I know that that helps me feel very safe and held. And then as far as like answering the call and in this time now and that expression of your own heart energy, I mean, the messages that I was getting from my guides around the situation that's happening now, but it also applies generally, which is the point of a situation happening right now like this. It shouldn't take a crazy catalyst for humans to kind of be like, oh, I need to connect to my heart. Oh, I need to wake up. But it does a little bit, and that's okay. That's a human thing. But they were saying we all need to be shining our light now, basically. And you shine your light from your heart. So it's the part of you and it's the actions of you that are of service to another, that feel not about you, although you are contributing and you're expressing and you're being your authentic self. So that level feels kind of about me. There is this quality of like, almost like duty is the wrong word. It's a bit too hard, but there's some softer word I can't find to describe like service. But anyways, to shine your light right now, to move through fear, you have to be, we want to be willing to shine in our light place and to believe in the truth of your heart here. Your truth is here. It's not in your mind, and it's not in the fear energy. It's not in those all fear energy that we're experiencing, even though it's activated by the current situation. It's old archaic energy from and beliefs and things from your traumas and stuff.
Yes.
So you meet with them the same way that you have been doing, ideally, if you've been doing your work, which is you're just, okay, I'm going to use my coping skills. I'm going to use my grounding skills. I'm going to take care of myself with, like, if I have a facilitator who helps me to transform. But yeah, I'm also going to step into my own heart light, you know. I know for me, I really had to do that. Like this like became not a choice anymore. It was just, this is bigger than me, and even though I'm still scared and I still don't want to be seen and all these things, like the world needs you right now to shine your light and to realize that your purpose is not actually so much about you. You incarnate with a specific purpose because it's like one piece of the collective heart light that needs to shine. So if you are suffocating your light, everyone else is being affected by that. If you're saying I'm not worthy, I'm bad, or whatever's going on for you, if you're believing that, then we're not acting in that contribution. And there's something beautiful in you, and that's why you came here, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So your position in the world, it really helped me to feel like, okay, if I care about the world, I have to heal, because it was easier for me to love that other people and love the world than myself at that time. You know, a lot of people are doing healing because they love themselves, but I think if a lot of people are honest, there's something painful about loving themselves. So, but a lot of those people are the most compassionate and contribution-y people you'll ever meet. Yeah. So you can use that to access and to step into your heart light. That's what I call that, because that's what happens when you shine your light. You energetically, you light up, and you're just a ball of light.
It's true. It's really beautiful, you know, because it's you're tapping into a frequency, and then you're magnifying and expressing that frequency. And we know that the entire, you know, world is made of energy, and it's just frequency, right? So if enough of us were tapped into that frequency and really focused on radiating from that place, I mean, I think the world would change overnight, you know, if there were enough of us really focused on that. And it can change, you know, I think even just affecting the circle of people around us, that's not a small contribution. You know, I run into this often with people where it's like, well, I don't have a big purpose like it feels like you do, Julia, because I don't want to teach. I don't have like people I'm working with at that level to help heal, or and it's so not about that. I mean, you or I are called to do our work in this way because that's how our heart has spoken to us. But I mean, it is equally as beneficial. Like you said, it's that piece of the puzzle, and it's unique. You know, it's a unique contribution, I think, for every human. What is your unique, like, signature on this whole work of art that we're creating together? It's equally as worthy to contribute just honestly, and it's not even just, but by being and radiating that frequency, being and impacting your husband or your children or your wife or your mother or your friend or whomever, just by being in your presence. You know, some of us are called to take more action in the world at different capacities, and I do feel like, you know, sometimes if you can just, you know, again, put your hands over your heart and really tune in and do some type of a meditation to kind of open that portal, you can have a conversation. You know, it is a relationship, like you were saying, Beck. So having that conversation and asking, like, what is most important to you? What is your unique offering? What unique gift did you come here to give the world? And for me, I remember doing this exercise. Actually, I did this with a mutual friend of ours, Allison Reed, who, quick plug, go check out Allison Reed's channel. She's a beautiful psychic medium and intuitive coach, and she's a self-love coach, actually. But she gave me a little bit of business coaching. This was like 3 years ago or something, 3-4 years ago now. And she had me put my hands over my heart, and she was asking me to just let that energy speak through me. And what came out was, and I knew it was true because it hit, you know, and I had those tears that come from like release. It was like, I need to use everything that I've experienced to benefit others. Like, I can't not do that. Not because I feel like, oh, that's my obligation, but like, it's literally like the thing that gives my life meaning and purpose, and it's my joy, actually, you know, and that will cause a sensation often of release or expansion or something that lets you know, like, yeah, that's the truth, even you know, at least for right now, right?
Wow. Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. I just you just reminded me of that energy that happens when people do that. It's lovely.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
something to go off of that is, as you're expressing, I was just thinking of my clients as well that come to me and like, but I don't know. I don't
Right.
know what my heart is doing here or what I'm doing here and all those things. And yeah, there's helpful things to be very direct, like Julia was expressing, but it's also helpful maybe to be aware that your natural inclinations are your heart energy, like what you naturally want to do. It doesn't have to be this dramatic inspiration or like, I need, this gives my life meaning. If you don't yet have, some people are still not developed in that kind of this healing space to have access to that yet, or they've got a block there. So what we can use though is what's fun for me. What did I used to do when I was little as well as a good one. What do I want to do? A lot of people that are saying I don't know what my heart's purpose is and stuff, they're the people who were like me, who like, if I was to listen to their narration in their mind, 90% of their day would be, I should do this, okay,
Right.
I'm going to do this, I should, not like rarely I want to, or I feel like, fill in the blank.
Yes, that's
Um,
so, it's
yeah.
so important, is that we are really conditioned out of just following our natural impulses. I was talking about this with our community last night, looking at, you know, Abby's here, a friend of ours, and has a dog, and so the dog is here, and we have 2 cats, and we're talking about how the animals live, and I think we could look to them for a lot of wisdom sometimes. And it's like, okay, I feel like having a drink of water, I'm going and getting a drink of water. Oh, I didn't like that, I'm gonna, like, you know, not do that. It's just automatic to let that inner force of desire move them, or need, or, you know, whatever pull they're feeling. But we are really conditioned out of that, and so many of us are so scared to do that we've lost touch with it.
Yeah, and I think ultimately it's because you don't feel, the person doing that doesn't feel safe in some way.
Yes.
Sometimes for particular blockages, like I wasn't allowed to be me in childhood, I wasn't allowed to express in childhood, all of the
Mm-hmm.
above, enmeshment. I see it a lot in people that have an enmeshment, a big
Yeah.
enmeshment issue
Yes.
pattern, which for those who don't know is where it's a pattern where the child is kind of, the parents will be like, you don't like blue, you like purple. Like they tell them who to be and they squish any expression. They're the ones that are sending their kids to like all the competitive things and all the after school practices to just like achieve. And So there's never any room for them to be themselves, to express themselves, to have their own sense of self,
Yes.
to have boundaries that build a sense of self and to know who they are. So you end up as this person that's kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing, and apparently I have this heart purpose, but I can't. Nah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It feels.
what we're talking about, yeah, what we're talking about now is the thing of what do I feel like doing is actually what you should have been allowed to do when you were like
Yes.
2 years old. So now you
Yeah.
have to do it as an adult.
Yeah, and sometimes, I think it takes some work to go back and kind of sift through that conditioning and move through
Yeah.
the particular traumas of your childhood. And I do that work. I'm not sure if you're offering that anymore, Becca, as part of what you do. But that's one angle. And then additionally, like sometimes just trying things and seeing how
Mm-hmm.
it feels, just being connected to your feeling body and just, okay, well, I don't know, maybe I like to do cartwheels. Let's try a cartwheel. Like, I mean, that's a silly and simple explanation, but it's like if you feel like, like I used to want to be an actress when I was little, and I remember going and taking an acting class and being like, oh my God, I love this so much. And now I find similar joy in doing channeling work as well as doing speaking, just being on stage at whatever capacity. And I still do a lot of things that bring me joy that aren't directly connected to the work that I do in the world with others, but
Mm-hmm.
are an expression of my heart life, like playing the guitar and singing, or, doing oil pastel drawings. And all of that matters, right? Like all of that counts. It doesn't matter if you're making money doing it or if anyone's even seeing you do it or not. I remember there was a period of time when I was doing a lot of dancing in my room, and I remember asking my higher self, like, what, am I supposed to dance or something? Like, am I supposed, and it was just like, no, this is like, it's the purpose is like for you to just be in this energy and just
Mm-hmm.
experience that flow. And just by being in that state, like you're shining out this ripple, to the whole.
Mm-hmm.
Always. Anything that brings you joy is going to uplift the collective. Doesn't matter if it's in your bedroom and nobody sees you. No human sees you, right? Until the end of time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, my cats see everything. Me dancing alone in my room.
I know, mine too. So back about 10 minutes left, and I'm wondering if there's just anything else that you feel, and you can tune in if you like,
Mm-hmm.
would be really helpful for people to know, or that just seems like you want to communicate to everyone about the
Mm-hmm.
heart and letting it lead.
Yeah. Okay. Letting your heart lead, I would say, ultimately, it's about being yourself in all that you do, all that you are, all that you express, or the relationships to the world, everything. What it all comes down to is being yourself, because you already are your heart energy. You already are embodying your heart and your higher self in all of those areas, every area of your life, in every moment, actually.
Mm,
That's the truth. What's happened is just we need to remember that. We need to remember that love that we are, and that comes through remembering and getting back in touch with your most natural self, your authentic self. So it
yes.
doesn't have to be, what I want people to say is like there are all these tools and techniques are very important and very helpful, especially on one side note, stillness is really important if you want to be actively living from your heart, which we've covered. But if you feel overwhelmed by any of that or all of that, what I would just say to you is just be yourself. Be your most natural self. Aim to be yourself when you're talking with someone. Aim to be yourself when you're creating something or expressing something. Not with an agenda of I'm going to embody my heart right now, or I'm going to live my purpose right now. It's cool if you have that, but if it's not coming from a natural place, just be yourself. That's you letting your heart that's already here shine.
Whew. I love it. So beautiful. Yeah, and I'm such a proponent of authenticity as well. And
Yeah.
I think absolutely what you just shared, Beck, is the crux of it, and it applies in relationship as well, in terms of if you want relationships that feel great and that are amazing and that meet your needs genuinely, to calculate, to manipulate, and I'm not making any of those things wrong, by the way. There are very good reasons why human beings develop those mechanisms, to suppress our authentic truth about anything, about a situation, about our needs, about our boundaries. We're really robbing ourselves and others of like that experience of really coming together in a space of true harmony. A lot of times, I find even relationships that from the outside looking in, you might see as really functional, they're really just keeping the peace. And peace is a beautiful thing to strive for. However, that element of realness and authentic you-ness, is, I think, so essential for even determining like who jives with you in your life, and in what way you can connect with various beings. But what I will tell you is that ever since I started focusing on the heart space and doing my inner child work, my higher self work, connecting in that space in the ways that I have, my relationships have improved times freaking a million because it is a natural movement to be more of who you really are when that space within you is when you're tuned into that space within you. And when we're more of who we really are, we draw towards us the things and the people and the situations and the projects and the careers and everything that are in alignment with what's best for us and what we came here to do. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So before we go, would you like to share about how people can reach you
Absolutely.
or anything else final, where they can contact you and anything that's coming up for you, anything important? I want to know too.
Yeah, thank you. I know. Gosh, if you guys are out there and you're spiritual type entrepreneurs and you don't have like homies to share with, you're missing out. It's pretty neat to be tapped into people who are doing similar work. So thank you for asking. I appreciate you. You can find me on Facebook as Julia Phoenix. I love new Facebook friends, and direct messaging me is a good way to get a hold of me, actually. And I do a lot of live videos and things like that there. You can also email questions.julia@gmail.com. I can get back to you there. Our website is under construction, but hopefully by the time that this particular video is released, it will be back up or close to it. And that's JULIAPHOENIXELEVEN spelled out like the girl in Stranger Things, like ELEVEN, JULIAPHOENIX11.com. And Becc, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I have a website, beccluminary.com. So it's BECCLUMINARY.com. I'm also on YouTube, just under Becc, or you can, just search for Becc on YouTube, where I make really magical light language videos, healing videos, connect to your heart video. Please watch that, you guys, if you were like, how do I do this? It's a really good frame for you to make your own as well. And yeah, I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. It's all Becc Luminary or Becc, BCC. So just look for that. Instagram's obviously at Becc Luminary. And yeah, just to answer what Julia mentioned like a little while ago, you were saying, oh, I don't know if I still do trauma healing stuff or what healing stuff I'm doing. Just so people know, I offer sacred sessions where we do meet with activations, charges from trauma in the past, and we utilize your spirit guides and your higher self energy to actually heal and transform those. And also sacred listening, compassionate listening, intuitive support. Um, yeah, so we get to kind of just play in that light and hold you in a sacred space and flow with whatever is in alignment for you. Um, and yeah, it's just I'm just all about the magic and the heart, and I really am available for you guys to message if you have any questions about anything or
Yeah.
YouTube suggestions. That's what I'm pretty keen on doing.
Yeah. Okay.
I just love to just talk about love and all the things.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the same goes for me, to just message me with any questions that you have or recommendations, definitely for future videos. Like if you want Beck and I to come on and talk about something different, you know, let us know. Um,
Yeah, do
I
it.
did want to mention as well, I totally forgot to say, you had asked if I had anything coming up. I have a conflict resolution course that is going to
Mhm.
be available throughout April. So definitely
Mhm.
get in touch with me if you're interested in that. It's you know, some of the things we were talking about with regard to communicating from a space of compassion versus reactivity and judgment, how the nuts and bolts really of how to do that and what that looks like, and practicing that. Definitely get in touch with me about that.
Yeah, and guys, we'll have all the links
Yes.
below the video, or some maybe on screen, definitely below the video, so you don't have to remember all this, but it's cool if you do.
Yeah. Okay, thank you
So
so much
thank
for watching, you guys, and thank you, Beck. I love
yeah,
you.
thank you,
Appreciate you so much.
everyone. Thanks, Julia. Love.